Only 4 faces can go on the mountainside. Who will be carved into stone and who's getting left in the rubble?
Today, we're making impossible choices. Welcome to the Ultimate Fantasy Hall of Fame, or Flame.
Hi there, welcome to Fantasy for the Ages, the show where father and son sit down and talk about today fantasy authors. I'm the son of that equation, Zach.
And I'm the father, Jim. Thanks for coming and being with us today, hanging out for a while. We hope you're going to enjoy this time that we're going to talk together about some great fantasy authors, a little bit of debate, a little bit of argument, maybe. If you do enjoy this, don't forget to give us a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet, and hit that notification bell so you'll see all the other content we have coming out for your pure entertainment. And Patreon supporters, thank you for your constant support. You make this possible. So today we're facing down one of the toughest debates yet. Who deserves a spot on the Mount Rushmore of fantasy authors? We're not just throwing out our favorites, though the ones I'm putting out are ones I do certainly enjoy.
Okay.
We're thinking about legacy, impact, innovation, and enduring love from fans across generations. At least that's the construct I brought to my picks.
Yeah, we'll see if we have the same criteria. Each of us is going to be nominating 4 authors that we're going to be putting up onto this monument. If you're not from the United States, this might be a little bit like, what is that monument?
I think most
probably known enough or Googleable.
Googleable. Nice.
In the end, we'll pitch what we think should go up there. We'll talk about it. We'll argue, and we probably won't agree.
We'll at least always have our own Mount Rushmores, our personal preference. But we will try to see if we can come to some agreement, some compromise in the end to merge our joint Fantasy for the Ages Mount Rushmore.
It might get a little intense, but
It might.
I have faith that my dad and I's relationship will survive this. Probably.
Well, on that light note, let's do this. Okay, let's go. And, the last time we did something going back and forth stuff, I deferred to you. This time, yeah, I'm taking it for me.
Take
the first
it.
one.
Go for it.
And I hopefully will be taking the one we both have on our list.
Probably.
Because you cannot have a debate about who belongs on the Mount Rushmore of fantasy fiction without giving the shout out, the place of honor to J.R.R. Tolkien.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, he's often considered the father of modern fantasy, and rightfully so. We got The Hobbit all the way back in 1937. It's kind of mind-blowing. It was that far back.
Yeah.
And then that gap of time before The Lord of the Rings came out in 54 and 55, but still set the table for what epic world building would be like. He invented freaking languages.
Yeah.
The depth of what he built there, and just think of how the genre has been impacted with him throwing in these elves and dwarves and orcs and dark lords and so many things that other authors used as the template, or if you're Terry Brooks, completely ripped off for a while. And that's it. It set the level. And then the impact that continued. I mean, the Lord of the Rings movie trilogy. So there's not an argument on Tolkien, is there?
No, but I do have an additional reason to really spearhead, I think, why he should be here. Specifically, he should be in the George Washington spot.
I like it. The father of it all.
I had to sit here and go, okay, I know this monument. I've been to this monument.
We've looked up its nose.
Why are the people who are on it? Why did each person get there? And so I got a reason that each of the presidents that are in this monument are there.
Will give us a refresher.
So we got a George Washington symbolizing the birth of the nation. Then we get a Thomas Jefferson symbolizing its growth, especially like physical land growth. But then we get to a Roosevelt and its economic development. And then we get to Lincoln and holding the nation together as it grew and changed and fighting for a different kind of more social growth.
Ooh, so that's kind of the construct that influences your picks?
That was the framework that I went with. And so some
I
of these I
like
don't
it.
necessarily agree with for like my favorites or even the most influential, but they are influential in these ways.
This will be interesting. Well
And so
said.
specifically for the birth of fantasy, I
Tolkien.
give the spot to Tolkien. He deserves that George Washington spot.
Mine maybe almost fit into the same construct you were putting in there. This will be interesting. But what do you want to, what person do you want to pitch forward? And are you thinking it to be your Thomas Jefferson?
Yeah, I'll put my Jefferson next.
The
This is
growth
someone
of
who,
the genre?
as the genre started growing, getting bigger, more authors, we get another boom, say 70s, 80s specifically here, and then 90s and beyond as well. And this is just a beloved and prolific author in this space with more than 40 books in the main series that we talk about with this person. This is Terry Pratchett,
Okay.
known
Okay.
specifically for Discworld.
Yep. Not one of my picks, but I did certainly consider Sir Terry Pratchett. There is a worthiness here. Give us more of why you think Pratchett. Gotta be Pratchett.
I ultimately sat here and I went, who is someone who's definitely distinct, unique, gives a different flavor and voice to the genre, but really grew what you could get out of fantasy and enjoy it. Brought whimsy to it in a different way that allowed a growth of the fandom as well to people who still don't like a whole lot of other fantasy, but will love this world. And there is so much of it to love.
I like it. This is exactly why I considered putting Pratchett on. Um, he basically came along and said, we can just have fun with fantasy. It doesn't
Yeah.
always have to be serious. And yet, while laughing our heads off, I can still slip in some deep philosophical themes. Yeah, no, that's a good one. It's a good one. Not on mine. I'm going to give you one that I know is not on yours next.
Okay, what do we got?
I'm putting Robert E. Howard up on Mount Rushmore here.
Yeah, definitely not on my list.
Now, hear me out. Mostly known for being the creator of Conan the Barbarian, Howard pioneered the sword and sorcery subgenre. That's why we have truly this subgenre, because Howard, way back in the 30s, was making it popular. He inspired comic books, pulp fantasy, role-playing games. I mean, Dungeons and Dragons flows from Robert E. Howard's work. And later, even the grimdark aesthetics are drawing on from some of the darker stuff he was putting into print decades earlier. He actually died young. He didn't do all that many of these books, and yet others picked up the mantle to keep this kind of character moving forward for decades. So it's one of those that foundationally shifted what fantasy fiction can be all about and still has an impact today.
I can understand your reasoning. I don't think I put him on there, but that's a difference from how I connect with his work. This is certainly an author who has some beloved things and some potentially problematic things in the content of their actual books, but to a certain extent, so do the people on Mount Rushmore. So
See, and that's the thing that I understand what you're saying, and the younger generation in particular has problems with Howard because cancel culture says this stuff's not cool anymore. But I refuse to accept the fact that there isn't value in what he contributed just because nowadays people don't like talking like that about the various things. It's like we got to let go of some of that and just appreciate the literature for what it was and what it did. That's where I'm at. So
there's
I get
certainly a
that.
level of not wanting to glorify some of the more problematic tropes that arose out of that work, while also still being able to recognize this is beloved by many for a reason.
All right, what do you have for another one of yours, and which niche are you putting it in?
My next, I'm moving into the kind of the economic growth and boom. There were really only two options for this to my brain, and I went with the one that I think I want to put on there more,
Okay.
if only because of how their beard would look in The Rock. This is George R.R. Martin.
That's who I would have gone with next too. Yes.
Between the massive growth of the series and how it was a boom into getting new people into fantasy, making fantasy a dinner conversationable topic, as well as specifically with the adaptation Game of Thrones, the show being so big,
A
you
phenomenon.
can't really make a better argument for someone who has been more influential in terms of getting people to buy fantasy again, unless you start trying to bring in a J.K. Rowling. And between the two, I wanted to put Martin up there.
Yeah, Martin made fantasy mainstream. Really moved it into the common vernacular. So many people who never really thought seriously about fantasy fiction were all fantasy nerds for a while because of Game of Thrones primarily, but a lot of them then picked up the books. I need to check this out. And let's not overlook how he really lit a fire under the energy of grim dark fantasy. He wasn't the first person to write something somewhat grim darkish, but he's the one that gave it the critical mass so that we have so much grimdark out there now because people are willing to buy and read this kind of content. Yeah, good choice. I like to think Martin's impact had a lot to do with people recognizing, ooh, it's really fun to read about people who suck. These morally gray characters, these complex, dirty situations. It didn't all have to be fairies and glitter. Not that it was, but he went like next level. Yeah. I also like the fact he's the one I put together with No Characters Ever Safe.
That's fair.
Yeah. All right. Well,
sounds like we're kind of in agreement on him getting up there, maybe.
Totally. And the beard, yeah, it fits, except you're putting the beard where Abraham Lincoln would be then?
No, this is Roosevelt.
Because Roosevelt didn't have a beard.
No, but like, oh well.
He did have glasses, and Martin's got glasses, right? I think so. All right. Well, for my last pick, humorously, I put J.K. Rowling up there. Now, I debated whether or not, but when I'm thinking my criteria of what I'm doing here, she fit because of the massive amount of impact that the Harry Potter series had, how it captivated an entire generation, brought in so many of modern fantasy readers into lifelong love of this genre. They started with Harry Potter. She blended these classic fantasy tropes that we knew for a long time and dropped them into this modern, contemporary school story setting, even though it's a very different sort of school. And no one can argue with the sales. She's among the best-selling authors in history now, and the cultural impact honestly rivals Tolkien. And you got more people nowadays who've read Harry Potter than The Lord of the Rings. So would I put her in the Abraham Lincoln slot? Well, the way you described things, she's the one who kind of brought everybody together to say, yes, fantasy, what more is there?
It's such an interesting thing because would I put her in the Abraham Lincoln slot? No. Would I put her books in the Abraham Lincoln slot? Maybe. So like a decade or two ago, would I be willing to put her there, or at least something representative of Harry Potter? Sure. I don't think she fits that mold well enough.
You really struggle, and maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but you really struggle separating the author from the works.
Well, currently we're not talking to, like, we are talking about the works, but we're making a monument to glorify the author's face. So
to glorify the author's contribution to the genre. That's how I look at it.
It is a massive portrait of their face. Even if I am doing that,
you just don't want to see Rowling over and over.
This is one of the few times where I will very much be a proponent of, no, you can't separate the author from their work, because what we're showing isn't their work. What we're showing is the author.
So what do you want to put up there?
I debated for a while over a couple of different things, and I ended up going with one that you probably won't necessarily agree with. Probably one of my more controversial picks, and definitely newer of an author, and so I don't think fits your criteria for the amount of impact that they've had.
Okay.
I would like to propose V.E. Schwab.
Yeah.
My reasoning being, one,
case.
she's writing banger after banger. I'm enjoying everything that I read by her. But more importantly, it's what she brings to writing and modern fantasy, why she writes, and the take that she presents towards new authors and what she really wants to put out there of if you are aspiring into the fantasy genre, what should you do? What should you be looking for? And the big thing that she always says is that she writes first for an audience of one. She writes something that she would want to read. And I think it's really important for us to remember that when we're looking for things that we want to read, when we look for things we want to write, a lot of people's opinions about what is or isn't good are going to be out and around us. But ultimately, what we want to read is what we want to read, and we should focus on enjoying that. And I think it's a very welcoming and open, almost lighthearted, without being light perspective to fantasy that I think the genre does need.
I hear you. I don't think her opinion or her statement is as groundbreaking as you make it out to be. Honestly, I think most authors write what they want to read. And that's kind of where they foundationally come from. They think it's good, and so they hope everybody else will too. She just happens to be really good at writing. And so people also like what she likes writing for herself.
On the one hand, I hear you and agree with you. On the other hand, there are plenty of authors who are good at writing who the way they phrase that statement is coming more across as being elitist or thinking that they are better than their readers,
Mm.
which often is just going to leave a bad taste in my mouth, especially if you also turn around and say you don't even write fantasy, even though your books are clearly fantasy.
Now, I can't really argue against Schwab because I've only read one of her books so far. I have a bunch of the others on my TBR. I recognize she's very accomplished, and you've spoken a lot about the value of her works. But I don't think she's had nearly the impact as Rowling. So I would not be able to replace Rowling with Schwab. I just can't do that. We're not going to be
For
able to
this,
compromise on this one.
no, for the sake of our channel monument, I think you get the Abe slot and I get the Jefferson slot.
You know, we're always going to have our own for our own purposes.
Yeah,
But because I did
you
consider
considered
Pratchett,
Pratchett.
and I value why you put him in there, I can give you that. I think we can have a compromise for Fantasy for the Ages.
And hey, 50%, we were in pretty good agreement, even with the different styles of preparation we brought into this.
Absolutely. So there it is. Our mountain chiseled in stone. I wonder, can I create a graphic and stick it right here? I'm going to try. I'm going to put it up there. So if
He's
I was
gonna
successful,
try.
people, whoa, you're seeing it. Maybe I'm filling the screen with it for a moment. Our mountain. Do you agree, viewers, or do you disagree?
I mean, they probably disagree, but we want to hear that too.
That's right. It's fun. If they disagree, give us your picks then. What would be your fantasy Mount Rushmore? Put it down in the comments. Pick your 4 authors, but no more. Don't waffle. It's not as easy as you think to just come up with the 4. But we want to see what your legacy would look like. What are the 4 authors that stand above them all for impact, for innovation, for what they've meant to the genre?
And if you're brave enough to say that while Tolkien's a giant we stand on, we don't need a giant image of his face, that's a bold opinion, but I'd like to see you make it.
Yeah. So thanks for watching Fantasy for the Ages. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Epic debates like this drop from time to time, along with all other sorts of episodes. We're glad you were here. We hope you had fun. Zach, did you have fun?
Yeah.
So, yeah, come back again. We'll talk to you next time.